The problem we have in our culture is we teach people that it is only reserved for people who have power or who hold a position, but leadership is not a position. Leadership is a way of thinking. And one of the biggest problems is we have to change people's mindset to realize that you actually can make a difference in the world, in your space, in your zone, if you actually understand your value and understand who you are and what you bring to the table. So for me, as somebody who's literally experiencing that, I wasn't in a position of leadership. I didn't have somebody, reporting to me at the job or whatever. So I said, man, let me just create this space where I can talk to people about this subject and actually try to encourage people to do that.
Hi, everybody. Lee Scott here. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee, where we talk about life, leadership, and legacy, and we help you discover the leader within you. If you have not done it yet, go right now and subscribe to Leading on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. I'm super excited today because this episode of Leading is really unique. It's something that I did actually last year in 2021. I was actually invited onto a podcast with some friends of mine that you've heard from here on Leading called Reach Over Culture Podcast. I'm super excited that they had me on their podcast last summer. So I'm just going to share this with you here on Leading today. Check this out, and I hope that you'll be inspired to make a difference.
All right, Reach Over Culture Podcast. We're here. Shout out to the YouTubers all over the building. If this is your first time watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Yeah. So, like I said, man, we got a special guest in the building today. We've known each other for a little bit of time now.
Yeah.
Almost to like we go back, kind of, in a way. What was that, 4 or 5 years?
Has it been that long?
Might have been, bro.
I don't know. I can't put a number on it. It seems like if it hasn't been that long, it has seemed like it's been that long.
Got you.
I can say that much.
Well, first off, shout out to my man Moses. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Yes,
Great
sir.
to be back.
Shout out to Moses.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You know, Moses, man, I get geared up every time, man. We had these recordings, 2 recordings, gearing up for 4 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, we've been on a roll bringing in guests. The mans you got to the right of you. If you don't know, now you know. This is my man Lee Scott and them. You heard?
You heard?
Future Dr. Lee Scott. Future Dr. Reverend Bishop Lee Scott.
That's funny. I will say this on the record, which is hilarious, is I hope nobody thinks that my name is actually Lee Scott and them. I hope they understand my name is Lee Scott.
For those, you from Mississippi, man. You know how.
You know how it is.
Yeah. Lee and them. You know them.
Right.
Now, if you're not familiar with who Lee Scott is, if you follow us on Instagram, my bad, I'm still getting used to the second camera thing. If you follow us on Instagram, then you've seen me repost his content before, Leading with Lee. Very, very, very great podcast. You can actually find it on YouTube. They're getting the streaming situation together. You'll be able to find it on that as well. Lee, just kick it off real quick, man. Tell us a little bit about Leading with Lee. What's the goal, and what was the inspiration, and what is the goal of Leading with Lee?
Well, first of all, thank you again, Raheem, for having me on, bro, and giving me an opportunity to talk to your audience and finally getting to meet Moses. I keep seeing him on stuff, and I'm like, oh, who was this guy? Okay, now I get to meet him. But Leading with Lee actually started as an idea back in 2017 or 18. Mm-hmm. I had just left my undergrad. I got my undergrad from Oral Roberts University.
Shout out to Oral Roberts.
Yeah. I got my undergrad in leadership. It was more specifically public policy, but it was mainly a leadership degree.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I started noticing I was coming out of college, and as most people experience when they leave college, you're trying to figure out how to get your footing. You're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to move my life forward and actually make a lot of progress in my career, right? And so it led to me just starting to have conversations with people, and then me just really starting to think a lot about what am I trying to accomplish in the world? What am I trying to bring into the world? And so it started out as just me saying, man, I just want to share what I think about leadership. I just want to share what I think about, the world, I want to share how I perceive certain things. And so that just became an opportunity for me. So what I did was I just was like, man, I don't know if anybody's ever going to give me an opportunity to speak or share or do anything like that. So let me just create something where I can share my perspective. Like, I think anybody that maybe listens to this or watches this needs to recognize that sometimes doors don't open for you. Sometimes you have to build the door.
Right.
And so a part of that for me was realizing, like, hey, what I got to lose, And so I just started having, it started as a conversation like late. I was thinking about it 2017, 2018. I was really kind of starting to make a move on it. I reached out to one of my really good friends who produced Leading. His name is Kyle Sturck. Love Kyle. I mean, he's my guy. And Kyle and I was having conversations about it. And I was like, man, I don't know how I would do this, but let me just host a free seminar, and just test out some of my perspective about the world when it comes down to the subject of leadership. Because I fundamentally believe that every person, no matter what position they hold, no matter who they are, has a capacity and level of leadership. The problem we have in our culture is we teach people that it is only reserved for people who have power or who hold a position, but leadership is not a position. Leadership is a way of thinking. Okay. And one of the biggest problems is we have to change people's mindset to realize that you actually can make a difference in the world, in your space, in your zone, if you actually understand your value and understand who you are and what you bring to the table. So for me, as somebody who's literally experiencing that, I wasn't in a position of leadership. I didn't have somebody, reporting to me at the job or whatever. So I said, man, let me just create this space where I can talk to people about this subject and actually try to encourage people to do that. So that's how Leading started. And then, interestingly enough, I did maybe 3 or 4 seminars that year. And then fast forward towards the end of that year, I started having a really good conversation with one of my friends, Kyle, and we start talking about possibly turning it into a podcast and vlog, not knowing that it was like late 2019, not even realizing or knowing that the pandemic was going to happen.
Yeah.
So we had already started recording stuff and started putting things together and started talking about this stuff. And then the pandemic happened. It was like, oh, well, this is genius. This is the perfect storm. Like, oh, we were already positioning ourselves, amazing how God works. But we were positioning ourselves to do this. And so it became a podcast and a vlog. And then it gave me more opportunities to share. And it gave me more, it was different, but it actually challenged me more to really dig deep and really start to make this accessible. So my biggest thing with Leading was like, this is how we're going to go about this process. This is how we're going to make a difference in the world. But trying to get that message to people, man, like, I think it's super important that people understand that like, you have value. We think, being seen is for the few, but it's for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of the genesis of Leading, and that's what I've been kind of doing with Leading.
Okay. So with that, right now, how many episodes in this season?
Oh, we are. Let me think about it, because I started in February. So, and I put out my podcast and vlog is bi-weekly. So it's April. I don't know when you're gonna put this out, but it's been about 7 or 8 episodes at this point.
Okay.
Somewhere between 6 and 8 episodes. And as you well know, in this space, we record before, but that editing process, you got to figure out,
Yeah, you gotta get a flow with that.
Oh yeah. So editing, taking the time to edit and actually block it out to make sure that you can do it well, it's been good. But thus far on this season, I did a panel with several friends of ours, some mutual friends of ours who are young professionals, who are young Black people who have been very accomplished and done some things. I recently had on Ryan Gordon came on. Ryan's episode was amazing. She was so great, and sharing, and Ryan was great. And a friend of mine, she's like a big sister to me. She has been in HR for a number of years, came on and talked about women being in leadership and women being involved in the workplace. So I've had a lot of interesting conversations, and there are some really good episodes about to come out. Somebody we both know, Dexter Sullivan, came on. He runs this great organization called Black. And it's about Black legacy and advancement of Black folks in America.
You still haven't put that out yet.
Oh, it's out.
Oh, it's out. Okay,
out.
I'm about to say. I felt like I just watched that.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's out. And then the episode that's
episode.
out now is of a friend of mine who I met through this organization called Black Christians Influencers, and he's an entrepreneur. He's a business owner. His name is Dion Bonaparte. Man, like. His was amazing is Dion shared with me that, like, literally, even in our episode we talked, this man shared with me, like, literally in a year's time, this man has built a 7-figure company in less than a year. Like, it's insane. But for me, it has been a great process of learning and gaining information and getting insight and just getting into the mind of how leaders think about certain things.
Yeah.
It's been interesting.
You got anything? Any other? So, what's your plans for the rest of the year? 7-8 episodes in. Through your social media, I've seen you also appear on other panels. Branching out. Doing your thing. Obviously, people are hitting your phone for you to share your expertise. What's your plans for the rest of the year with Leading with Lee and everything that you're doing?
Well, man, continue interviewing people. This season was different because Kyle, who I keep referring to, he got married last month, which congratulations to him. He's my guy. And he got married last month, it was in March. Yeah, he got married in March. And so I had to kind of learn a new skill, right?
Yeah.
With this process, you learn a new skill.
Yes, sir.
I was always so used to being the content and maybe creating the social media stuff, but like I'm doing everything now.
Yeah.
So that has been a learning curve and interesting. And so with leading for the rest of the year, at least right now, just definitely doing more interviews with people and engaging in conversations with people and sharing, people, or actually giving platforms to people who, for some reason, you may have not known about them or known about their business or about their organization, but really engaging in conversations with them about stuff. And so, like, I'm really, really doing that this year. I may put out an episode where I'm just sharing, but I'm really working on right now trying to get my hands on some equipment and some different things. As far as shooting is concerned, I have some goals, and I got an opportunity to kind of experiment a little bit with the company I work for. I work for TTCU Federal Credit Union, and they let me borrow some stuff, and I figured out how to shoot it a certain way. And I was like, okay, that's just. Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, buddy, I'm about to get it. Yeah, just trying to make sure I get some, get my hands on that cash, brother.
Yeah,
so
word.
To do some stuff so I can do it a little bit different and better.
Word. Well, I'm excited to hear about. Well, I'm excited for whatever else you got going on for the rest of the year, outside of podcasting, again, because I see you on different platforms outside of podcasting. So, that's dope. You want to do something and then it branch out into other things. And I think that's dope.
Oh, and can I say this real quick? And to your point, I think it's really great for podcasters and people who do this to experience and try to expand themselves, right? Because you can get so in the routine of doing this, and then you become real dull, and you stop being as effective as you want to. Like, for instance, the fact that you all started the sports podcast, that's great, because it gives you another avenue to share some things that you care about and share some things that you may be unverified.
Uncredible. Shout out to the Uncredibles.
Right.
We don't know nothing.
But it's great. It's great. It's a great opportunity, and it's interesting that you're doing that, because one of the things that I have been thinking about doing is doing other content, right? Because it's not just about, okay, leadership is what I love to talk about, but it is not all of who I am. One thing that content creators sometimes get stuck in is, and there have been content creators who have been able to do it very effectively. sometimes when you're trying to build a brand or you're trying to build something, people can only see you in that space, and they don't realize there's so much more to your life.
Yeah.
That like is rich and amazing and encouraging and actually something that you can learn from, but it just takes, time. And so I'm looking at stuff like that too, bro. I mean, and I say do it. Like with the sports one, honestly, even me being a part of that was me trying to give my boys a platform to talk they talk. Because every time we come, I like sports. Don't get me wrong, I'm into sports, but I really am ready for like today. We shooting a couple of episodes. I'm going to be in the background of those 2 episodes. Yeah. So, or kind of in the background. So, expanding like a media group is like you need more than one media outlet. And every time we talk about sports and regional culture podcasts, it take up 10 to 15 minutes. Like, all right, we got to create something different. Right. You know what I mean? So yeah, bro, I encourage everybody to expand and find different lanes, give people a different piece of what you're into and what you're doing, which can be a tough balance because, like you said, everybody, like, if you start talking about dating, it's gonna be like, you're just talking about leadership, like, leadership. But that goes back to it, which is super hilarious. Is we don't think that like leadership applies to everything.
Oh yeah,
because it does.
You can swing, you can swing that. You can swing that in everything. And to your point, you'll be surprised if people love your content, they gonna rock with the content.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So with the sports joint, that one, sports is a little bit easier because it's a niche following. Right. So everybody like talking about sports, but everybody has really been rocking with with the sports podcast because, but that's picking talent. That's getting the right people involved. Right. That's actually knowing what you're doing.
And Matt be being so savage on there,
bro. Listen, shout out to MC.
Yeah, for real.
Oh man,
I'm afraid what he coming with today. So Matt be talking kind of crazy. But yeah, it's
he comes with a like.
Well, no, because if you learn from that first episode, he ain't come with any of that.
Okay.
Them first 2, he ain't come with any of that. He was getting spanked. So then by the 3rd episode,
he brought some.
I brought my notes.
Yeah, he brought some paper.
See, I had the notes the first 2. By the 3rd one, he said, "Oh, no."
Yeah, it's that rhythm. It's that rhythm, and I think we all experience that level of rhythm in what we do. Is that we get so you like. Even right now, like you all have a rhythm in conversation and us talking about stuff. Like we're so used to doing this. It goes back to that 10,000 hour,
exactly
narrative.
Exactly.
You put so much time into something, it becomes easy for you to just rattle off whatever you need to say because you have invested the time, you've invested the talent. You put so much effort into this one skill or these set of skills, and it's made you more productive, and it's just easy. And people are like, "Man, why are you so good at it?" Well, I stayed up to 3 a.m. reading about this, or doing these different things, and I think that's helpful for people to realize and understand when it comes to this stuff.
Time, bro, you said it. Like it takes time, to build a skill. Yeah. Like, cause like yourself, I've gotten that. Like, this season is just crazy, or like, you seem like you just got it figured out, and it's like I think I kind of do at this point.
Yeah.
Like even messing up the first intro, I was like, I haven't done that in a while.
Right.
I got this though.
Right.
So, on the topic of leadership, before we transition, what is the number one leadership tip that you've lived by? All the leadership tips that you've given over your time span, what's the number one that you live by?
I literally have, and even though I knew you were going to ask me this question, like I said earlier, I fundamentally believe that every person has a level and a capacity for leadership. Because, and the reason why I believe that is, I think that we can learn something from everyone. And when you come into situations with a posture of listening and trying to receive from an individual, you will see that they actually have something to give to the world and be significant. And one thing that I have done in my professional life and just in life in general, I just ask questions.
Yeah.
I mean, you can learn so much about people if you just ask them, right? I found moments where literally I would say to someone like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, what is, if money was not a thing, like, what would you want to do? What would you try to pursue? What would you actually put your time into? And then when people start telling me that thing, I'm like, okay, so what are the steps that you're going to take position yourself for that, right? And so for me, when I look at leadership and when I look at this topic, that is my posture. Be the best listener and actually speak to the fact that this person actually has a capacity and a level of leadership. And when you do that, that creates opportunities for that person to see themselves in another light and actually see themselves as valuable. And so, you know, those are kind of the ways I approach, and that's like something that I literally live by in every aspect of my life.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
good.
Moses, what's the number one leadership tip that you live by?
Moses.
I think the number one thing is before you can lead others, you need to lead yourself first.
Yes.
That's the number one
I
thing.
like that.
Yes.
I like that. Drop a bomb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Drop a bomb for that.
Yeah.
Moses with the bombs, you heard?
It's something I've been
Talk your talk, son.
Yeah, it's something I've been trying to learn and read about more, and I love to every leader always leads differently, and they always have different way of thinking. I think one thing I love about learning from all of them is just asking simple questions.
Yeah.
Just simple questions like, "Yo, what do you do in the morning?"
Yeah.
Or "What do you do about this situation?"
Yeah.
And I think I remember John C. Maxwell. The one thing I loved about it, the one thing I think a quote that he said is like, "Leadership is just influence. That's all
Yep.
it is."
Yep.
And so that's something I'm like constantly learning and just trying to put more in my life into.
I got you. I like that. Man, number one leadership tip I probably live by is my pops, my stepdad, who came to my life about 4 or 5. First thing he taught me, he ain't know me from a can of paint. Like you know my mammy.
That's a new one. I've never heard the can of paint.
Right.
That's-
I'm surprised, bro. You from the South, bro.
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
yeah.
I'm surprised you ain't heard that one.
I don't know cans or paints.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm surprised you ain't heard that one. But yeah, he always taught me, the first thing he taught me among meeting me. And he didn't marry my mom. He don't know me. He don't know my brother. He don't know nothing. He just, all right, man, so look, be a leader, not a follower. That's all he ever told me. Every year before school, playing sports, and anything, hanging out outside in the summer, just be a leader, not a follower. If they go on one way, go the opposite way. If be a leader, not a follower. And as simple as that was, like when I was a kid, I didn't fully understand it. It's helped me stay out of a lot of situations that could have altered my life in general. Just simple situations, from either getting in trouble or, picking the same classes there. Just everything. Like always being a leader, not a follower. And that's what I'm gonna teach my son. Just be a leader, not a follower. Peer pressure, the whole nine. Like in everything that you do, be a leader, not a follower. And as you get older, you learn how to follow. In order to be a leader, be a proper leader, you first need to know how to properly follow. But just for the simple things, he always just taught me to be a leader, not a follower, in everything that I did. And so I just stuck with that. It's kept me out of a lot of trouble. It's kept me sane. It's kept me with the right group of people around me at all different times. Whereas like the troublemakers was trying to be next to me because like, oh, well, we know we can't convince Raheem to do it. So, in order to keep us from getting out of trouble, we gonna follow him. Like, hey, we about to go do this.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go do that. Like really, in most things in my life, I've been able to prosper and be successful because I've decided to lead instead of follow everybody else or what everybody else is doing. Balancing that and rebellion is, a tough balance. Sometimes I'm just purely rebellious. Sometimes I ain't doing that. That's corny. I ain't doing that. But always, be a leader, not a follower. I mean, that plays in the tail, speaking to the leaders and other people and learning how to lead yourself. So I love both of those responses. Getting to this next thing. So for those who don't know, you also dabble in politics a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
I do. I do.
So the Derek Chauvin case has just been officially closed. He was found guilty on all 3 counts. And so without really getting into the specifics of the case, if you know Derek Chauvin, George Floyd, we know the whole ordeal. But justice has been served. They found him guilty on all 3 charges. And a lot of people are satisfied with that verdict. Honestly, I was a little shocked. I was
too.
I was shocked.
I was too.
I was a little shocked, but I wouldn't really, because the George Floyd situation had a totally different tempo and climate to it.
Yeah.
Like, it happened at the perfect time. Unfortunate situation happened at the perfect time when everybody's sitting at their crib and they have nothing else to do but to watch the internet.
Yeah.
So this couldn't just skate by.
Yep.
Even keyboard warriors that didn't believe half of what they were saying with Black Lives Matter had no choice but to just sit there, and because it's the hot topic and it's what's to talk about. And so I was surprised, but I'm not surprised. I'm like, unless you want this, like, this country's already shown you what it's gonna do.
Yeah.
If this goes the other way, like, they've already given you a preview. All right, in order to keep the social order, go ahead and lock my man. So get him out of there. So I'm shocked, but I wasn't super shocked. What were your thoughts? Just your initial thoughts on that guilty verdict coming down.
Man, I would say that there was such mixed emotions. One being that initially, in light of the situation, like, this is going to sound funny to people, especially as someone who is very, like, engaged in politics and knows what's going on. I didn't know the day that they were going to give the verdict. I wasn't into the case that much because I realized that, like, me getting involved would have been just so emotionally charged and would have been really taxing for me in a lot of ways. And so it was very interesting because I remember being at work, and just for some reason out of nowhere, I felt this heaviness hit me. And I'm like, why do I feel? What is that? And I was like, I don't know what's going on. I literally went to my boss's office. My particular branch man, she's a Black woman. She grew up in Tulsa. When I tell you she knows history about this city, history about this area, experiences, lived way more life than me, and I love Miss Belina. She's just a wonderful woman. And I went to her office and I told her, I was like, I don't know why I'm feeling off right now, but I can feel something's happening. Mm-hmm. And then I just so happened to get. This is ill-advised. Nobody should be on Twitter at work, but I just so happened to get on Twitter, and I saw that they, like, on my feed, I was seeing people were saying, "Hey, they're about to deliberate. They're deliberating right now about the verdict." Mm-hmm. I was like, "Oh man!" So, that initial, like, anxiousness and anxiety that people were feeling, because the fear was exactly what you said, Raheem. This is going to go the same way we have seen it happen over and over and over again. Right. And so for me in that situation, I was like, man, Lord, I started praying. I'm like, listen, God, I ain't been praying for a minute right now. My mind has been everywhere else, but let me just send up a quick one. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. We still cool. You know that? Right. Let me hit you up real quick, big dog. Yeah, your boy is under pressure right now. And like, that's like keeping it in the bill with you. Like, that's just how it was. Mm-hmm. And when the verdict came down, as most people felt to some degree, some people felt peace or adulation, and they were happy. But for me personally, I felt conflicted, so conflicted, because a part of me felt as if, okay, this is what is in the Constitution. This is equal protection under the law, which is in the 14th Amendment. Is Clause B of the 14th Amendment. This is actually the law doing its job, right? It is protecting this person's right to life, right? But it's that other complex thing where it's like, okay, well, what if, that other fear was hitting me, like, what if we didn't have a video? What if there weren't enough witnesses?
Oh, you already know.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, right. It's like so many factors that's in that feeling.
So it's kind of like, yeah, we got that W, but is this a continuous?
Right. Is this going to become the standard?
Right.
Right. And we understand this in legal situations. Generally, rulings like this set precedents, right? Generally, if someone was to argue a case, it is generally based on a precedent of another case that has already been established. For instance, one of the biggest issues why we having issues prosecuting cops is because of a case that happened in 1984. I don't remember who was against, but I think it's Graham versus South Carolina, or Graham. I can't remember who was against, but basically what happened in this case, long story short, this gentleman had a seizure. Long story short, he was basically in the grocery store. He had this guy who had a history of having seizures. He was in the grocery store. He started to have a seizure. He walks out of the grocery store while he's having a seizure, and he's shaking. And just so happened there was police officers sitting across the street in the car that came over. They arrested this man. They ended up jumping on this man, so on and so forth. When he went to court, his attorney argued the case in a very interesting way. He basically said that that the officers didn't know or understand how this guy was, how this guy was going to respond or doing what he was doing. Right. Mm-hmm. And their response was reactionary. Now, you would think that would work in the favor of the person who the act has been done against, but is now considered a police officer's keep forgetting what it's called, but basically it's like the police bill of rights. Basically what it is they use that case to argue that as an officer, I don't know, based on what you do with your movements, if you are dangerous and going to kill me. Mm-hmm. So if I respond with violence, or if I respond with in this case lethal force or deadly force, I legally have the right to protect whomever you're going to attack, and also protect myself. So they actually teach, and most people don't realize this, they actually teach cops about this. They teach them that this one aspect of having confrontation with the public is like, and it's so crazy because and somebody's gonna quote me on this, but I know this to be true, but it's such a complicated issue, and I think a lot of people don't understand that there are precedents within the law that actually has been argued over and over and over, and up until some of the cases we've seen in recent years, we were like, how in the world did we not? Philando Castillo. I mean, just we can Sandra Bland. All these, we can name all these people over and over again, and even last week with Ma'Khia Bryant. Yeah. Like I can tell you right now, his attorney is going to argue that it is one of those situations where that the officer did not know what her next move was. So his initial response was going to be to use deadly force because it was about the protection of the people that were involved, or it was a protection of himself. And so it creates this complicated issue around this. This is why when we talk about policing reform or talk about policing in America, it is such a complicated and not an easy thing to talk about, because the misnomer and the assumption is when black folks say we need to reform the police or defund the police or anything in that realm, people are assuming that you're saying that you don't want police to protect you. No. Like who? And I'm trying not to rant, but here's what's crazy is when we talk about this issue, especially in light of this case, when we talk about this issue, one of the biggest problems people don't understand and can't seem to see is that we need the police. Black folks need the police. Brown folks need the police in our community. We want them to come in our communities and be helpful to us, right? If something's going down, we want it to be helpful to us. But just like the Ma'Khia situation that happened last week, her family called the police because these girls were at this child's house trying to jump her, and she's the one that ends up dying. You're right. Like you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I'm conflicted about that situation.
But
I'm not gonna lie, but
which is understandable.
That makes sense.
Which is understandable. But
it makes sense what you're saying.
But it's the complexity of these situations, right?
I called the cops and I got killed.
Right. It's complex. It's not something very simple and people can understand. And this goes back to something. Go back to the top. The initial question is, what are my thoughts about the case? My thoughts are, number one, it is great that, yes, we finally got a verdict that was helpful, but this is like a 0.5% of convictions on the books right now.
Exactly.
Like, literally, I was listening to a podcast that I literally love. I listen to podcasts every single week. It's called Pod Save America. And they just so happen to have Congresswoman Karen Bass on there. And she was talking about from the start of the Chauvin trial to literally the verdict, there were 69 shootings involving police officers. 69. Like, you can't. It's such a scary thing because, like, listen. You know, I'm of the mind that, like, this is why we have to reform the system. We have to reform the system not because people inherently hate cops. God, no. I want. Listen, my grandmother was a patrol officer. My mother has worked for the Jackson Police Department in my hometown for the last 15 years. Shout out to yeah, man, Jacktown. City of Soul. But like, I know officers. Like, I know these people. Like, I see them all the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like family. Like, we know these people. And it is not that we have an issue with them being able to do their job. The problem that they have is a lot of times, which I don't see how people are against police and reform. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of the problem is they're under-resourced. They're overworked. In some ways, they don't are not paid enough to do some of the stuff that they do.
Yeah, a lot of times they're underpaid.
Yes, and so we're talking about a system that does not empower them to do their job effectively, so that we won't have these type of situations. Hi, everybody, Lee here, and I want to give some information to you. Do you need someone to host an event or come and speak at your event? You can now book yours truly. Book me for your event by visiting www.leeascott.com. I am so excited to connect with you and do work with you. Much love, and let's get started. I'm quoting someone, I don't even know what his name is, but when I heard him say it, I said this is one of the most brilliant and very thoughtful things concerning this issue of policing in America, and even the Chauvin case is, he said, we need more options for 911. And I was like, wow. You know, I never really thought of it. He was like, yeah, we need more options. He was like, because all these people are saying, like, well, if we reform the police, if we deconstruct the police or shut down police departments, then what we're going to do to call 911? He said, well, in my response to that, he was like, we need more options. Right. He said, because when you call 911, you get EMTs. You call 911 for firefighters. Why can't we have more options besides just police officers showing up on the scene? Why can't we have more opportunities or more opportunities to decrease the likelihood of somebody dying, no matter if they're black, no matter if they're white, no matter if they're Hispanic? It doesn't matter. Yeah. What matters is if we are actually doing something to ensure the safety of all people involved in these processes. Yeah. And so when it came to this case, man, I was like, you know, if it works out that we get this guy convicted, that'll be amazing. But then we also got another step that we got to get past. I think people better, you know, like, people better really be patient and really, like, be fully engaged, because he still has to be sentenced, right? Like, the judge could literally, the judge, and I pray that this doesn't happen, but the judge could literally be like, well, it was great that we got him convicted. I'm going to give him 10 years or 5 years or probation. Or, I mean, the maximum he can give him is 40. He could literally say, I don't want to give him 40. Right? Like, there's roles that everybody plays in this process. And this is why I always say this. It's so funny, because anytime we talk about these issues of things that's happening in culture, people don't understand why important voting is. We don't understand how important being involved in knowing who your DA is, knowing who the prosecutors are in the DA's office, knowing who your police chief is, knowing who your mayor is, knowing who all these individuals that are involved in creating laws and legislation that actually affects your lives in a significant way. And if we don't know these things, it actually creates problems for us in the long term, because we have situations like that where we like are with bated breath, hoping that it works out, that he gets convicted. Wow, we're sitting up here in the same week. We done seen several mass shootings. In the same week, we see Dante Wright get shot. In the same, I mean, like, this is we are literally dealing with so much information coming in. Like, there's so much, and so it's just a lot, man. I try to be like,
so on that same topic, just real quick. So how do you see real reform coming in the foreseeable future?
Oh yeah. I believe that it is going to. I mean, there is a sect of people in America who simply just because it isn't. There is a certain sect of Americans who fundamentally believe there's nothing wrong in America.
Right.
Right. And here's the thing: they have the right to believe that, right? And I have to be okay with that, even if I don't agree with them. But there is a large, vast majority of the American people who really think, especially at this point, they're like, we might need to do something different. It may not, we don't know what exactly it is, but we need to figure this out. We need to figure out how can we do this better and be more effective. So I do think that there is going to come a time where people are significantly changing. I mean, cities are doing it across the country right now. There's a city, Ithaca, New York, is their mayor actually proposed transforming the police department. Minneapolis decided to or it was in Minneapolis or Milwaukee, I can't remember which one. They decided to just defund the police and create a whole new thing. Or really,
that was Minneapolis.
Yeah, they looked into doing something different with the police department. There are several cities and states that are looking at this issue and saying, okay, how can we be more effective in this? Should it be that we start partnering with the mental health community or all these other communities to do this more effectively? How do we, and something I'm not hearing enough about, this is just me personally, and I'm going to say this, we're not hearing enough about how are we analyzing the mental health and wellness of police officers. Like, I don't think people actually realize how traumatizing it is to be a police officer every single day. The stuff they see, like, I don't know, we got to move on, but it was amazing because I remember maybe a year or two ago, I got invited by a friend of mine to an event where they were, there were some police officers there. The guy who was a spokesman for the Fraternal Order of Police here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then people from the public, activists were there, elected officials were there, and I'm sitting here listening to the discourse. I'm just kind of listening, and I thought I just might ask a question. So I got up and asked. I said, do we ever really talk about the mental health of our officers? And I legitimately asked, I was like, do they have access to any mental health professionals? Right. Which I thought was really funny because when I actually talked to the spokesman, he was like, oh yeah, we encourage them to have peer-to-peer conversations about, the stuff that they're dealing with. And
Peer-to-peer?
Yes, bro. That's what he said to me.
And we encourage it.
Right. We encourage. He said, we have a counselor on staff. Nah, dog. You like, I don't know what you're thinking, but you legitimately think these people are going to go talk to each other about this stuff? No, they're not going to do that. It should be required of them. There should be required at least a mental fitness assessment at least once a month. They should be required to go talk to a therapist.
Absolutely.
And have them on staff. and have them within as a part of the police force, so that you can ensure that these men and women are healthy, that you can ensure their emotional health. And we think that it makes them weak if we do that, but it actually makes
that's
them.
the misnomer about mental health in general.
Yes.
Like, people going to talk to people is like, bro, it's not. Especially with police officers, I would think that you would be required, especially if you had to discharge a weapon or something.
Right.
If you've been in a shootout, had to engage in a sting operation. If you've been undercover, it's like, yeah, go talk to somebody, because you've lived your entire existence over the last 3 years as two people.
Yep.
Right. And so now that process is over. Now you've maybe cracked down, or you've taken them to trial. Yeah, they're not required to go to counseling.
Yeah.
They might still think that they buddy from the block.
Yeah. Which is crazy to think about.
That's crazy to think that they wouldn't be required to do that.
And that's happening more often than not, and people don't realize that. Like, it is something that is happening so often. And so I'm gonna say it real quick, and I know we got to move on. But with that being the reality, is that we need to change the policing culture. They should be, yes, they are valued, they are seen, but we have to change the culture to ensure that these men and women are being taken care of, especially in their mental health regard, because we do the same thing with the military. There is a whole agency dedicated to taking care of veterans after they leave war. They have access to mental health professionals. They have access to like resources, whether it be housing, whether it be school aid. We have a whole department within our government.
Yeah, the VA.
Yes, the VA, Department of Veteran Affairs. It takes care of them. Now, there's a lot of things about the bureaucracy of the VA, and people can have their opinions about the VA, but the whole idea is very, very smart, because these people see war. And here's the thing. Excuse me. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox about this. Policing is one of the most critical things in America that we spend the least amount of time preparing people for.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should not go through. This is just my opinion, but it's crazy to me. It doesn't make sense to me that, like, you go through a policing academy is what, 3 to 6 months, but it takes me longer to be a barber or a beautician.
Well, I mean, and I thought about that in that aspect, because they're underpaid, overworked. It's like, who's rushing to be a police officer?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
right.
I mean,
right.
It's just like the army. Like, yo, we need more soldiers, so we'll water down the process,
right,
and make it less strenuous to get in, because we have, like, you can't go to a police academy 3 to 6 months to be an FBI agent.
Right.
You had to have had some skin in the game.
Right.
But everybody want to be an FBI agent.
Right.
Everybody want to get their James Bond on. Nobody want to be Martin off a Blue Streak for 2. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like, I totally agree that we need a more strenuous process to become a police officer. At the same time, because our culture doesn't make policing cool. Because I think
I disagree with you on that.
The black culture makes policing cool.
Black culture don't make policing cool.
That's
but
what
the greater culture.
No, I'm talking about
right.
In the areas that we're affected most.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because one of my remedies would be, why don't we get more of these kids to be police officers?
Yeah.
Right? But it's not cool.
Yeah.
We you can only affect change from the inside out.
Right.
And so I'm like, because we don't have a lot of people that look like Latino or black wanting to be police officers, of course we're going to have the same struggle over and over. And while we'll have reform, it's a little slower, because most of the people that look like us despise the cops, let alone want to be a cop.
Right.
So I'm like, what can we do to make policing and just city jobs in general more attractive and more applicable to people of color, that they can actually go ahead and make a change from the inside out?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Moses is like he want to say something.
No, I'm listening. It's really good.
No,
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It is one of the most interesting and complex things that we deal with in our culture. And I think there are ways to fix it. I mean, there are ways at least to start to make some movement on it. You know,
absolutely.
One of the biggest things that is interesting that historically when we think about it, that I'm not saying it has to be this way, but it will be interesting if we could get people to realize or look at it this way. At one point in time, particularly in the Black community, even in the Latinx community, and even in the Asian community, because we couldn't go into white communities, or because we couldn't move into even suburban areas, right. Because we had, like, they literally have it in their, you know, lease agreements or even in their housing agreements that you couldn't sell a house to a person of color or anything like that. Like, this is historical fact. Like, this is empirical fact. This is not something that we have to debate about. We had everybody in our communities. Mm-hmm. Your doctor lived in your community. Your police officers lived in your community. The lawyer lived in your community. Like, that had an effect on the perception or the perspective that you had about your value in the community, mm-hmm. right? And so when we talk about this issue, like, we may have to get back to that. We might have to. And one idea that I have, and I hope nobody steals this from me before I get to do it when I finally decide to run for office. But one of the things that I feel very strongly about is cities should think about maybe if there are some properties in these areas across the city that may not be the best properties, but the city can fix them up. Buy these properties in these areas, and here's what you do. Here's how you change the narrative in those communities. Have the officers live in those communities.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
What you talking about? Like get Mayberry to move to the projects? Is that what you talking about?
Exactly.
No.
You know why? You know why? You know why?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know why? It's because when you know the people in the community, you change your perspective about them.
Yep.
Right?
You hope so.
And so when I mean, it's not saying like you have to live there, but I mean, like, when you're on duty, if you're if this is your patrol for the next week, you're going to live in this community this week, because
that's a good idea.
You need to go and engage with the people, and it's required of you that if you're going to go work in this community, you know who the community leaders are, you know who the major players are in this community. You can't, if I found out that that your corporal or your person who's above you is requiring that you bring back notes about who is in these communities, what are the major players in the community, and you can't bring them that information back, you need to be demoted. Or you need to be reassigned, because the reality is you cannot affect change in communities if you don't know what the community is experiencing and what the community is going through. It's literally, in the best scenario we can give to this, and I'm going to turn biblical on you real quick. One of the funniest things that we think about in scriptures, or one of the most interesting stories that we hear all the time in scripture, is the story of the Good Samaritan. The interesting thing about that story is a lot of times people see themselves as the Good Samaritan, and most people actually are the Levite and the priest. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times we think that us helping somebody means that I'm helping people who are actually in shambles, or who are actually, like, and that brings up another conversation about poverty, but that's not even what we're talking about. But we think, oh, if I just, have done this stuff for this particular group of people, then, I got skin in the game, or I'm just going to pray for them, or I'm just going to walk, like, oh, I'm sorry that you're in this plight. I care about that. But we're not willing to get in the process and go through the process of changing something for that person.
That's true.
It's such a problem. Like, it is a problem in our culture that we think that it's just about, if I do this quick thoughts and prayers. Our thoughts and prayers are with this family. Our thoughts and prayers are with this community. Our thoughts and prayers are with... Bro, get your tail in the game and find out what's happening there. Police officers should live in these communities, because if they live in the community, they'll understand the factors in the community. And watch this. They'll be able to reduce crime, because the people will tell them what's happening, because they know who this person is. Let's be real. All of us are automatically adversarial when we're dealing with somebody.
Adversarial, wow.
No, it's real talk. We're adversarial when you are dealing with somebody who don't know you.
That's true.
If they talk crazy to you, bro.
That's true.
Bro, you don't know me, dog. Who are you?
That's true.
Like, there's something in us that rises up and defends ourselves, because we realize, like, hey, bro, you don't know me, dog.
Yeah.
So think about how much that narrative would change if we spent the time to talk to folks. And
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at that.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that.
It's controversial. You said I was controversial.
No, I'm not. But it makes a lot of sense. I just with the thing with race, man. And I think I said this on like a previous podcast episode some time ago. It's a hard thing.
Oh yeah.
So like for me,
Oh yeah.
to come up with all the ideals to reform the police, which that is an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Make them live in a community that they have to patrol. At least make them live there for a week. Make them get ingratiated with the people. If their heart is still that of superiority, because of their skin color, them ingratiating with the people. And so I'm with the mental health initiative. I'm more with that, and I'm just more of. We need more of people that look like us in there. I can't.
That's true, but that's not always the case.
No, it's not. It's not always the case.
What was it? Was it Walter Scott or Freddie Gray, who's the officer that killed him, was black?
That was Walter Scott. Freddie Gray.
Scott.
Yeah,
Right.
Freddie Gray.
So even folks that look like us ain't doing right.
No, that's fair.
With
That's
Philando
fair.
Castillo, the officer was, I think he was a Hispanic or he was Filipino or something like that. So it is police culture in general. It's police culture, bro. Like you if we could challenge,
No, and
you
that's
said
fair.
are controversial at the beginning,
That's
right?
fair. It is police culture, but I think it's 50% police culture. Well, I'll say 70% police culture, 30% having to do it the way that we look.
That's true.
Because even the idea of police introduced in this country.
You know what? Right. You can actually make it more than that. You were 50-50 was pretty. Yeah,
I was about to say
on par,
50-50. Yeah.
You were on par.
I was about to say 50-50.
because we can look at media and
but I mean, but I love your ideas, and I think we can. It's more than one way to skin a cat. You know,
Oh, yeah.
as you said earlier, and so even if me and you might have different entry points on how we would affect a reform, both points are needed.
Yep.
Because you need to start at the top and you need to start at the bottom. Everybody doesn't need to be on all fronts. Everybody doesn't need to be on every exact front to make a change. And I appreciate your take, man. That was sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I added about 30 minutes to the.
It's all good. It's all good. I appreciate your take. One more thing before we get you out of here, which this has been an amazing episode. I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Okay, cool. You're in a relationship. It's pretty public.
Oh yeah.
All right. So you want to give a shout out, or you just
I love my girl.
All right, cool.
Ariana Yancey. I appreciate her so much.
All right, man. So now that you're in a relationship, which is, I mean, it's kind of new for me to see you in a relationship. 'Cause,
I know.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you ask your question.
So, I'm sorry with Moses. I mean, you're not in a relationship.
Yeah.
But Moses, young baby face killer. What's the number one thing that you've learned from your previous relationships?
I've only had like one serious relationship.
Okay. Your previous relationship.
Yeah. The one thing I've learned is don't be comfortable. Like if you're comfortable, being comfortable in a relationship.
Expand.
Yeah, being comfortable in a relationship for a man is very dangerous because
You about to teach?
yeah, because I mean, if you don't stop growing and you just sit there like, okay, I got this girl, I got this going, I got my 9 to 5, I'm just gonna chill. That's dangerous. Being comfortable is very dangerous. You need to continue on, what God's called you to do. You need to become the fearless man that you need to be a leader. Like you need to be all those things, but being comfortable is just dangerous because once you're comfortable, you just stop growing.
Okay.
And,
what else?
gosh.
What else?
What
You're supposed to be preaching for the brothers up north.
I know. I mean,
you talking down to the brothers up north. To the brothers up north, I got y'all. I'm gonna get at them in a second. Don't even worry about that. I'm gonna get at them.
Ooh, actually, one thing that I've learned is make sure you're close with God before you make this person have your heart first. You know,
How close?
like
How close with God?
real close. Like
What's close, bro?
you need to love God more than you love this woman.
Yeah, brother.
100%. Because
That's being close.
yeah, of course.
I mean, it's a new relationship. You might love a lot of things more than you
Yeah,
love her.
I know.
That's kind of easy.
That's true,
Yeah.
bro.
I might love wings more. Than you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's real.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You might love the money more than you love her. So how close? How close with God?
You gotta be real close.
Like be able to ask God, like, is she cheating? And he expose it.
You gotta trust God more than you can trust her. 100%. You gotta.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa! Yo! Brothers up north getting full on that Jack Mac. Oh, Moses came back. Hold on. That's a quote. I'll put that on the Instagram.
Yeah.
You need to be able to trust God more than you trust her. Don't shoot a gun. Don't shoot a gun on the microphone. Don't shoot a gun on the microphone. All right. That was cool. That wasn't that cool. That wasn't that smooth. I like that, though. Give me some. Yeah.
Man.
You need to be able to trust God more than you trust her. That's something God love.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good.
All right.
That's good.
Just real quick, man. One of the top things I've learned from my relationship, I ain't learned none of that, but I don't know, man. What's something I learned? I'm not always right. I learned I'm not always right. I mean, I knew that prior, but as I'm trying to be right. But, you know, being in a relationship, it really teaches you that, or it's a constant reminder that it's two perspectives to everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's wisdom
Yeah.
in that.
You know what
sir.
I'm saying? So
That's
everybody has their own perspective
Right.
and their way of thinking.
Right.
And a lot of us are stuck in our ways.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us have great ways about us that might not be the same as everybody else. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it just is.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You say tomato, I say tomato.
Yep.
We from two different countries probably. And so being in a relationship has taught me that you always have to take into account somebody else's perspective.
Yeah.
And just because they might not see something the way you see it or do something the way you do it doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong, or
Right.
doesn't mean they're less credible in anything that they're saying. Y'all just see it two different ways.
Right.
And as long as you can find a compromise, a healthy compromise, like, you know, I don't like rom-coms, but I like movies. You know, she's not necessarily a fan of the movies, but she loves rom-coms.
Right.
Go see an action rom-com. You know?
There's always
It's
a middle
all
ground.
it's always a middle ground. Might take a little work to find it, and especially with somebody like me. I'm a big dog. You see my shirt. You know what I mean? I'm initially, you know, going to be like, nah, I ain't doing that. But then it's having to come back to reality, like, nah, you're doing a lot right there.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, yeah, finding the middle ground and understanding that it's always, just because somebody's perspective is different doesn't mean that it's wrong. So that's my cue.
I think everything you all said is on the money. I think the only thing I might add is self-work never stops. I was not Wait, I was not expecting
Shout out
that
to Mortal
sound.
Kombat.
Shout out to Mortal Kombat. Self-work never stops, because one of the lessons that I'm learning is when you're in a relationship, that person serves as a mirror. They often expose who you really are and what you need to work on.
The right person.
That's
The right person. The right
Yeah.
person will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Facts.
The
There'll
right-
be some people that be like,
Now, if you out here just, doing your thing and you just,
for the brothers up north.
If you
Pull on that jack.
listen. If you
Pull on
brother,
that jack.
listen.
The brothers up north.
If you
This
just
shirt
out
is
here,
for you.
if you just out here in these streets, I mean, that's just that's a completely different situation. If you just
You in
if
the
you just
street.
trying to get your needs met, that's a different situation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's a different approach
Yeah.
to relationship. Now, if you're actually trying to work on being in a relationship with somebody and be healthy and productive, yes, they're going to literally like push you to be better. And I think, one thing I have learned significantly in dating Bree, like I have constantly had to evaluate, what am I doing? Like, or how am I perceiving situations? How am I thinking about this situation? Am I trying to be right in this situation, or I'm okay with being wrong and I just need to hear what she has to say and actually receive that and actually make a course of action change? Like, okay,
You're not wrong, bro.
you're
right most of the time.
Listen.
This is for the brothers up
Listen.
north. I'm just playing.
Listen.
I only kid. Bree, I'm only kidding.
Yes,
he
you
didn't fall for it.
He's like, mm-hmm.
It's all good.
Yeah, I gotta go see her after this, bro. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're clear.
You're clear. Get
That
it clear.
I
Get it
listen to her, and I take what she says to heart, and really try to evaluate what I'm perceiving. And it has also taught me too sometimes that, like, now this is going to sound interesting to some people, but by personality, everybody's personality is different. A lot of times, I know for me personally, I would try to just conform just to keep the peace.
Oh no, that's a whole nother podcast episode. Oh no, you ain't about to get me started. That happy wife.
Oh my God!
This is for the brothers up north. Man, don't be doing that stuff because she told you, bro.
Right.
Look, bro.
Listen,
Look, bruh.
and right. I learned well is
got
that
hot.
you just. I know we got to go, but I learned that, like, actually I need to know my own value and know how to operate in situations, and she has helped me understand that more. I think I was already starting to do that before we got together, but it has happened a lot in our relationship to where something would happen and I'd be like, actually, Lee, you're in a healthy place. No, you don't need to back down on this.
Yeah.
No, actually not. No.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to back down. Now what?
Big muscle. Yeah, Lee.
Now here's the thing. What you need to do though is figure out how to say it better.
Okay, Lee.
Is figure out, okay, what is she hearing me say,
Man,
and
I
what am
don't-
I saying?
I don't want to keep extending the episode, man, because this is going to go somewhere else. Because sometimes you ain't saying it wrong.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Sometimes you might not be saying it wrong. Sometimes it might just be, I just didn't like the way you said. Well, how else did you want me to say it, baby? It's just going to, like, did I cuss you out? Did I call you out your name? Did I say you was wrong? All I said was, listen, I use Clorox. Not
On
great
my whites.
value, not great value. But I just
Clorox on my whites,
I
okay.
felt like when you said that, it was just a tone and I use Clorox.
On my whites, bro.
How you want me to say it? I mean, if you could just turn it, how? So sometimes that be the case, but sometimes it be a little.
No, I'm telling you, it's balance. But that's the thing. It goes back to balance, right? It is. To your point, it's balance in that.
Nah, that's
is that
good,
you can say what you need to say and also be like, because I know sometimes I'll say things to Bree and she'll probably listen to this and kill me, but
Yes, sir.
it's okay.
Yes, sir.
I'll say things to Bree and it'll make her so mad with me, and which is warranted. And I would say things and it might be out of pocket, or it may have not been said the right way, or I would actually say it how I probably need to say it, and she may not like what I'm saying, and because I realized that she did not respond how I thought she should probably respond, what I immediately do is I start asking questions. Why did you respond? And not even in a accusatory way. I just literally say, I'm like, okay.
What was they just take it accusatory? Like you just ask questions.
Now my initial question would not be, why did you respond that way? Because then that sounds like I'm trying to start an argument. I'll be like, okay, what were you trying to convey to me in this conversation? You know, like, because let me tell you something. Raheem, you and I might be different. I feel like you can catch more bees with honey than vinegar. So, you know, I would just try to.
That's Southern. I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah, it's coming out right now.
That's word. That's word. No, I'm being facetious. I agree with like what you said. I just got to hold it down for my dogs. You know what I mean?
But here's the thing.
I will hold it down for my dogs.
But here's the thing. Everybody ain't in that same space, right?
That's a fact.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like this is where I am. Like I'm a year in, bro. Like, you know, I'm thinking about, like, both of us are in the process. Like, I'm about to finish up my master's. She's going to finish up her master's later this year. Just thinking about how does our relationship look, and being willing to understand in your own relationship. And I know this is not what we're talking about, but you got to understand that you're on your own calendar. You're on your own timeline. You got to realize that you got to do what's best for you in your relationship, and you have to take care of yourself in your relationship, together and apart.
Yeah, that's facts.
And people don't do that. People spend so much time, like, you know, people spend so much time trying to, you know, please and do all this stuff. But yeah, man, like, you know, that this is why, you know, maybe someday soon Bree and I do Loving with Bree and Lee. You know what I'm saying? We might do a little something.
That's crazy.
You know,
I mean, and I hope so, because in the case that it does not happen,
hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I'm just not taking it out of this episode.
Right. But it was interesting. That's cool.
I'm not editing it.
But it's cool. But here's what I will say is, no matter what happens in the situation, the greatest thing that I can learn is the lessons that I gained from being in a relationship with her. And actually, because I'm in a healthy spot in my own personal life, it's not gonna happen. But if it did happen, it would hurt. Yeah. It hurt bad. Yeah. But I'm able to, because I have learned enough about myself, and I'm in a healthy enough space, and I've created the type of relationships outside of our relationships. Like, one of the things that was a deal breaker for me with her is I asked her early on. I know this is not what we're talking about. I need to shut up so we can go do something else. But because I'm hungry. But one of the things that I made a priority for me, especially with her, is I asked her, do you have friends? Like, straight up. I was like, do you have some homegirls? Do you have really close friends that you've been friends with for years? Mm-hmm. And they know you, they know who you are, what you do, like, they know you. Mm-hmm. That was like a big thing for me, because I'm like, I got my boys, and I talk to my boys about stuff, and I'm really honest with my boys about stuff. And if I feel like I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm their world, that's problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like,
that's problematic if you don't have, you ain't got no outlets, because you can't just be talking to me. I mean, I know we best friends, but like, you need your, you know what I'm saying?
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I agree.
Yeah, we, like, you and I are best friends. Like, Bree and I are best friends. Like, we are best friends. But when I want to go talk to, when I want to go talk about something else, bro, or would talk from a different perspective, I go talk to my boy Sydney. Yeah. I go talk to Kyle. I go talk to, my boys back home in Jackson. I go talk to some of my homies that are still here in the city. Like, I engage in conversations with them because it helps me get more perspective. And then it gives me accountability in my relationship, right? Because they're not in it, so they can see it from a different vantage point. That is helpful. So if there is something that's happening in my relationship and they see it going on, they're like, hey, bro, what's that? Yeah. What? Like, what's going on with that? You know what I'm saying? Like, but we need that in relationships. And so, I think it's super helpful for, man, we could have had a whole conversation about relationships and that'd been just enough.
No, that's a fact. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. But
I mean, you got to bring me back.
You'll be on more. So it ain't the first time.
If you want,
we'll spin the block before the year's up.
We'll
spin the block before the year's up. But I appreciate you coming through.
Most definitely.
Sharing your wisdom, sharing your thoughts, man. We appreciate you. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to you.
Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. If you want to get more information and connect with me, visit me at www.leeascott.com or follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. So, thank you for watching. Much love, and let's get started.